So in this video, I'm going to break down the top 5 myths that I've heard about FPV drones online. The first one being, are FPV drones autonomous? You launch it, it finds a tank, it does the work. But the ones that you're watching online have no AI. You're thinking of Lancet drones, which are used by the Russian military, as well as Switchblades from the US military that were given to Ukraine. Those have AI functionality, but as of right now, the main drone that's being used in Ukraine are cheap kamikaze drones with no AI. It has no GPS, it's got no obstacle sensors, it's just thumbs on sticks. If I lose signal, if I hesitate, if I screw up in any way, the drone is going to crash. There's no target hit. What you're really watching is human skill amplified by cheap hobby tech. There's no AI, not yet. And we're gonna get into that as we saw fiber optics just come up, 6 months ago. The next myth is, why don't they just jam every drone? That's a great question. And the first thing I gotta say is jammers are a very expensive and very important part of every military structure, but they have limitations. You don't just turn on a jammer and, oh, no drone. It's gonna put out a radius at which it is effective at, as well as a time. How long can you keep this thing on? Because it takes a lot of energy. And it has to be in the most forward areas, which is where FPVs are striking. So these expensive equipment are also under the threat of being taken out by artillery. So if you need a recharger, if you need more batteries for it, the Russians would have to send people back, grab some batteries or diesel, and then bring it back to the front line. And every single time they did that, they would take casualties. So once the battery on the jammer dies after a couple hours, because it takes that much energy, then you have to find some diesel to refill it. But that's not readily available on the front line. There's many times when we're going to position, we have the jammer on top of the vehicle. And you can see them in videos as well. FPV striking these vehicles that have jammers on them, but it was never turned on, or the battery isn't working, or they drove through some bushes and one of the antennas snapped. So it's not effective. Although you see it on there, it's a very complex machine that a lot can go wrong. Jamming isn't a magic kill switch. Most FPV drones use analog or digital radio links. And what jammers do is they throw out noise on that frequency. They throw out a bunch of that frequency into the air, which will make your drone confused on what controls it's getting. And then for the video, it'll just make so much static in the air that you can't see what you're looking at. But as an FPV pilot, all we have to do is switch frequencies a lot of times. Or we'll fly above the bubble of those jammers. Some of them are omnidirectional, they go in every which way. And then others are oriented in a direction, they are directional. So what'll happen is somebody will lose a drone and they'll say, hey, we were jammed here. And then another one will get jammed in this direction. And what you can do is you can find out the cone of that jamming system and where it's pointing. And from there, you can just fly around it, or you can fly above it. You can do these different techniques. And as time goes on, you can find out the patterns. What time of the day do they turn on? What direction do they point it? What range does it have? How do we get around that? And all the drone operators in the area have a group chat, and we tell each other, not only of enemy jammers that we believe are operating in this area, but also friendly ones, which will give us a heads up 20 minutes beforehand. Hey, there's gonna be a jamming cone in this area. So it's a constant cat and mouse. New countermeasure, new workaround. And at the end of the day, we're talking about a $300 drone. It's okay to lose a couple of them. It's not bad. But if you have this AI functionality, the Switchblade or the Lancet, that's where you look at the tens of thousands of dollars. And that's how they're able to get through the jamming almost every time. But is it worth it for the price? That's a good question. And that's all I have to say about that. Obviously, fiber optics do not run on radio frequency. They run on the frequency that is wired to them from the operator. So they don't care about it. But just talking about radio controlled drones, like the ones that I specialize in, jammers are not that big of an issue. It is an issue. That's usually why most of our FPVs go down. But we're able to get through it. And then myth 3, are FPVs really $200 tank killers? These drones generally cost about $200 to $500, and they can kill a $5 million tank. It's an unlimited win, right? Well, sort of. They are cheap compared to tanks, but people forget the bigger cost. The parts for it, the fuses, the payloads, the training, the pilot time, the engineers, the goggles, the radio, the better antennas. There's so much that goes into these FPVs. And what would happen is that we would get funded from the government some drones every once in a while, but we weren't able to use them stock. We have to switch out the video transmitter because we don't run that one because it doesn't have the frequency we want. So we have to switch out an $80 part. And then, oh, they came as digital. We run analog. So now we have to take that part out and put in an analog camera or vice versa. There's a lot of parts that we have to switch out. And then if we're working with bombers, we can't use all of the stacks, the flight controllers, the brains of the drone that they give us. So we have to buy our own and then put it in there. So there's a lot that goes into it. The goggles cost $400. The controller costs $250 with a module. And you have to have multiple of them, as well as many different wires, engineering equipment, lighting, an engineering house, and you have to pay these engineers. 3D printers, yes, you can get these cheap parts, but it is a big investment. And all of this is for a drone that does not hit every time. One tank kill usually takes 5 or 10 drones. There's a couple of them that their batteries burn out, the radios break, the frames snap in training, it gets jammed out of the sky, it gets shot out of the sky. And then we 3D print parts. We strip old broken FPVs for motors. It's cost effective, but it's not free because some of those break along the way. But you have to work with what you have. We still need artillery, recon, and infantry. The drone is part of a whole system, but it's not the silver bullet. It costs a lot of money to operate and make these things. The next myth, why doesn't everybody just copy Ukraine's FPV tactics? They think that you can do it overnight. People think that you can just buy 1,000 drones off AliExpress and you're good. But what I've told you about the Ukrainian government issued drones is that we have to swap out a lot of parts. If you buy them online, you are not going to be using the same receiver, the same VTX, the same brains, even the same propellers, the camera. It's not plug and play. You need skilled pilots. You need engineers to modify everything that I told you about. To also fuse the payloads, batteries burn out. You need to test builds. You need reliable batteries, radios, antennas. You need secure comms, volunteer networks, donations, and plenty of contacts. This is not factory made. It's garages, it's basements, it's Telegram groups, field repairs. It works in Ukraine because we have thousands of hobbyists and tech heads all improvising 24/7 because they have a Russian missile over their head. That's really hard to copy with a big rigid army that needs American-made parts, not Chinese-built parts. And most of the countries are trying, but they underestimate the DIY hustle behind every FPV strike. It takes a lot of work and there's a lot of failure and there's a lot of learning that you can only get to your engineers and pilots through trial and error. Everything just turning to dust because you flipped off one switch. And the final thing is this, is that the American military and the militaries in Europe are looking for big contractors that can give them working FPVs that will be good for the next 5-10 years. But like I said, the FPV world is changing every 6 months. But what they really need is consulting from these Ukrainians. They need people that have done all the trial and error in Ukraine and then come over and talk to them. And that's where the real use is. So the only way you're going to get these people to help you is if you help Ukraine, because that's the war that's going on. This is what we're passionate about. We're not passionate about your military industrial complex. We're passionate about getting the work done right now. So you either support us or you don't. And that's going to be the difference between getting our support. We're not going to give it for free unless we agree with you and we see the support that you're giving us. And that's kind of the deal that's happening right now. It looks like Trump is now giving Patriot missiles and all this technology to Ukraine to help their air defense in exchange for drones made from Ukraine, as well as consulting, I would guess. So that's why it's been so difficult. Myth number 5, the final one I'm going to touch on today. Is this the final form of drone warfare? Radio-controlled drones? No, not at all. This is just one version. Fiber optics just came out, better AI assist, inertial navigation, anti-jam module, swarm tactics. And while we go the direction of the offensive, trying to get better FPV drones to strike targets, there's also a better defensive. There's better electronic warfare, detection radars, net guns, decoy tech. There's so much coming out right now. It is in every way, shape, or form a tech arms race. Every time that we find a new trick, they find a counter. That's war. But for now, the FPV is the ultimate tool. It's cheap, it's simple, and it's devastating if you fly it right. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you guys better understand these FPVs, their limitations mostly. And I hope that you guys get out there, get liftoff, fly around, buy a cheap FPV, give it a try, learn along the way. And yeah, it is the future of warfare. And although you aren't learning the latest tech of fiber optics and AI assist, at least you'll understand the functionality of these drones and what they can potentially bring. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I hope you learned something. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.